Ladies and gentlemen, before you skip this video, listen carefully because one of these 5 mistakes may be the exact reason your life keeps falling apart. The painful truth is some people are smiling in your face while secretly destroying your peace behind your back. And the worst part? You may be helping them do it by sharing too much. In the next few minutes, you're going to discover the dangerous things people should never know about you. And once you hear number 5, you will never look at people the same way again. And ladies and gentlemen, most people don't ruin their lives because they are weak. They ruin their lives because they tell the wrong people too much. They share their dreams too early, their secrets too openly, their pain with people who secretly enjoy it, and their next move with people waiting to sabotage it. Then they wonder why everything starts falling apart. What you are about to hear may explain why your peace disappeared, why your plans failed, and why certain people changed after you opened up to them. And there are some battles you cannot fight out loud. There are some victories that lose their power the moment you announce them to people who were never assigned to carry your vision. Everybody smiling in your face is not celebrating your future. Some people clap for you in public and compete with you in private. Some people ask questions not because they care, but because they are collecting information. And if you are going to rise to another level in your life, you must learn the discipline of silence and stop telling everybody everything. And your life is too valuable to become public entertainment. Your dreams are too sacred to be exposed to people who have never built anything themselves. Every seed needs darkness before it reaches daylight. A tree does not scream while it is growing underground. The roots develop in silence before the branches can stretch toward heaven. And many people keep destroying their own progress because they keep announcing what should still be protected. And the first thing you must stop sharing with everyone is your biggest goals. And not everybody deserves access to your vision. There are dream killers sitting at dinner tables. There are doubters disguised as friends. The moment you announce something powerful, somebody will remind you of your past failures. Somebody will tell you why it cannot happen. Somebody will measure your future against your current condition and decide you are not qualified. But the people around you are not the author of your destiny. And you cannot expect small-minded people to understand a life that requires faith. Some visions are given to you because heaven trusted you with them, not because everybody around you would approve of them. Learn how to move in silence. Learn how to build before you broadcast. Because when the work finally speaks, you won't need to explain yourself to anybody. And the second thing you must stop sharing is your financial situation. And some people act different the moment they think you are succeeding. If they believe you are struggling, they pity you. If they believe you are prospering, they envy you. Money changes how people approach you. It changes conversations. It changes motives. Some people only respect you when they think you have something they can gain from you. Others secretly hope you fail because your success exposes their excuses and protect your peace. Stop trying to prove your value through possessions, numbers, or appearances. A wise person knows how to have success without becoming arrogant and how to struggle without becoming ashamed. Your financial journey is personal. Build quietly. Invest quietly, recover quietly, and understand this. Wealth grows best where wisdom lives. And the third thing you must stop sharing is every detail of your relationships. And everybody does not need access to your private life. Stop inviting outsiders into sacred spaces. The more opinions you entertain, the more confusion you create. Some people will poison your relationship because misery loves company. Some people cannot stand to see peace because chaos is all they have ever known. And you do not have to post every moment to prove love is real. You do not have to explain every disagreement to people who are not committed to helping you heal. Some of the strongest relationships survive because they are protected from unnecessary noise. Learn how to keep certain things between you, God, and the people directly involved. And if you are constantly exposing your relationship problems to everybody around you, remember this. The same people comforting you today may judge you tomorrow when you decide to forgive and move forward. Be careful who you hand your emotional business to. Not everybody has clean hands. And the fourth thing you must stop sharing is your next move. And everybody cannot handle anticipation. Some people sabotage what they cannot control. There is power in surprise. There is power in preparation. The lion does not announce the attack before it moves. It waits. It studies. It positions itself. And many people remain stuck because they spend more time talking than working. And do not confuse motion with progress. Talking about a plan is not the same as executing it. Some people get addicted to applause before achievement. They want recognition for what they have not built yet. But true power does not need constant attention. Real builders are too busy creating to keep explaining themselves every 5 minutes, and you need seasons where nobody knows what you are doing. Seasons where you disappear from distractions and focus on development. Because when you come back stronger, wiser, and elevated, people will wonder how you did it. What they did not see was the discipline. What they did not see was the sacrifice. What they did not see was the lonely process that created the breakthrough. And the fifth thing you must stop sharing is your deepest wounds with the wrong people. And everybody is not qualified to handle your pain. Some people listen only to use your vulnerability against you later. Some people feed on brokenness because it makes them feel powerful. You cannot heal in environments where your pain becomes gossip. And be selective with your transparency. Wisdom is knowing the difference between being authentic and being exposed. You do not owe everybody access to your scars. Some conversations belong in prayer. Some belong with trusted mentors. Some belong with people who have proven they can carry your heart without dropping it. And hear this clearly. Being private does not mean being fake. It means you understand the value of protection. Even Jesus did not reveal everything to everybody. Even greatness requires boundaries. Even purpose needs covering. And some of you have delayed your own elevation because you keep seeking validation from people who were never assigned to affirm you. You keep asking permission to become who you were born to be, but your destiny is not dependent on public approval. Stop shrinking your vision to fit insecure environments. Stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you, and not everybody clapping for you is connected to you. Not everybody around you deserves front row access to your life. Discernment is necessary. Silence is necessary. Boundaries are necessary. And because every time you overshare, you leak energy. Every time you expose something sacred too early, you risk contaminating what should have been protected. A premature announcement can attract unnecessary warfare, and some battles never would have started if you had simply stayed quiet. And learn the strength of moving differently. Learn the power of quiet confidence. Let people underestimate you. Let them think you are doing less than you really are. Meanwhile, build your future brick by brick without needing an audience to validate every step. And there is a version of you waiting on the other side of discipline. A stronger version, a wiser version, a more focused version. But that version cannot emerge if you keep handing pieces of yourself to everybody around you. And protect your mind. Protect your vision. Protect your peace. Protect your healing. Protect your next season. And because everything valuable grows in silence before it changes the world. And because the moment you learn how to guard what matters, you stop living for attention and start living with intention. There is a difference between people who are building a life and people who are performing one. One is focused on purpose. The other is addicted to applause. And the dangerous thing about applause is that it can become a drug. Once you start needing everybody to celebrate every move you make, you will eventually lose yourself trying to keep people impressed. And some of the greatest damage done to your future will not come from enemies. It will come from overexposure. Too much access, too much talking, too much explaining. You keep opening doors that wisdom told you to keep closed. You keep giving people front row seats to battles they were never meant to witness. Then you wonder why you feel drained, distracted, and discouraged. And you were not designed to carry everybody's opinions. Your spirit cannot thrive while constantly seeking approval from people who do not even understand their own purpose. You must become comfortable with being misunderstood. Because every person called to greatness eventually walks through seasons where nobody around them fully understands what God is doing in their life. And there will be moments when your silence offends people. They will accuse you of changing. They will say you are distant. They will say you think you are better than them. But growth requires separation. Elevation changes conversations. And when you begin protecting your energy, people who benefited from your lack of boundaries will become uncomfortable. And not every invitation deserves your presence. Not every conversation deserves your response. Not every opinion deserves your attention. You have to stop feeling guilty for protecting your peace. And some of you keep reopening wounds because you are afraid of disappointing people. You keep answering calls that drain you. You keep entertaining negativity because you do not want to seem rude. But there comes a time when wisdom demands that you guard your environment. Because environments shape outcomes. And if you keep surrounding yourself with chaos, chaos will eventually feel normal. If you keep surrounding yourself with gossip, gossip will eventually contaminate your thinking. If you keep allowing fearful people into your inner circle, their fear will start attacking your confidence. And you cannot soar with eagles while constantly seeking approval from chickens. And understand this, everybody cannot go where you are going. That is not arrogance. That is reality. Some people are assigned to certain chapters of your life, not the entire story. Some people were only meant to teach you lessons. Others were meant to reveal your strength. But very few people are capable of growing with you into your next season. And stop forcing connections that no longer carry peace. And the reason some relationships feel heavy is because you have outgrown the environment. Your spirit is trying to evolve while your surroundings keep pulling you backward. And every time you attempt to rise, somebody reminds you of who you used to be. But you cannot become who you are destined to be while remaining trapped in environments committed to your old identity. And there are people who only love the version of you they can control, and the moment you become disciplined, they call you selfish. The moment you become focused, they say you are acting strange. The moment you stop tolerating disrespect, they say you changed. But growth always looks offensive to people who benefited from your weakness, and you have to stop apologizing for evolving. And you prayed for growth, but growth requires pruning. You prayed for elevation, but elevation requires separation. You prayed for purpose, but purpose requires sacrifice. And sometimes the hardest sacrifice is leaving behind environments that no longer nourish your future. And there are dreams inside of you that cannot survive around constant negativity. And there are ideas inside of you waiting for the right atmosphere to grow. But every time you share those ideas with people who operate in fear, they pour doubt onto what should have been watered with faith. Be careful where you plant your vision. Not every environment is fertile ground, and some people will hear your dreams and immediately search for reasons they cannot happen. Not because your vision is impossible, but because your courage exposes their limitations. Your faith confronts their excuses. Your ambition reminds them of the risks they were too afraid to take. And do not let insecure people shrink your future. And you have survived too much to settle for small thinking now. You did not come this far just to become average because somebody else was uncomfortable with your potential. There is greatness inside of you, but greatness demands discipline. Greatness demands restraint. Greatness demands the ability to stay focused even when nobody is clapping for you. And can you still believe in your purpose when the room becomes quiet? And can you still move forward when nobody understands your process? And can you still trust the vision when the results are taking longer than expected? And because real faith is not loud all the time. Sometimes faith looks like consistency. Sometimes faith looks like waking up every day and continuing the work without recognition. Sometimes faith looks like building in silence while the world assumes nothing is happening. But underground growth is still growth. And the seed beneath the soil looks invisible to everybody standing above it. Yet something powerful is happening where nobody can see. Roots are developing, strength is forming, preparation is taking place. And many people quit too early because they mistake hidden seasons for wasted seasons. And just because people cannot see progress does not mean progress is absent. And there are seasons where your greatest victories happen internally before they ever manifest externally. Your mindset changes. Your discipline changes, your standards change, your habits change, and those internal transformations eventually produce external breakthroughs. And stop underestimating private growth. And the world celebrates visible success, but visible success is usually the result of invisible preparation. Nobody applauds the lonely nights. Nobody applauds the sacrifices. Nobody applauds the discipline it takes to remain committed while results are delayed. Yet those unseen moments are what create extraordinary lives. And you cannot become powerful while avoiding uncomfortable seasons. And pressure is necessary. Challenges are necessary. Delays are necessary. Because some lessons can only be learned in environments where comfort disappears. Strength is not developed in easy seasons. Strength is developed when you are forced to keep going despite uncertainty. And some of you are in a season right now where everything feels slow. You are frustrated because your efforts are not producing immediate results. You are questioning whether your sacrifices matter. But delayed results do not mean denied destiny, and a farmer does not dig up seeds every week to check if they are growing. There is trust involved in the process. And many people destroy their own future because they lack patience. They keep abandoning what could have succeeded because success did not arrive fast enough. And do not allow impatience to sabotage your purpose. And everything meaningful takes time to build. Character takes time. Discipline takes time, legacy takes time, and the stronger the foundation, the longer the preparation often becomes. And you keep comparing your chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 20. You keep measuring your beginning against somebody else's breakthrough. But comparison is dangerous because it blinds you to your own progress, and there is somebody praying for the opportunities you already have. And there is somebody wishing they had your strength. And there is somebody looking at your survival and seeing evidence that miracles still happen. And stop minimizing how far you have come. And you survived things that should have broken you. You endured seasons that tested your sanity. You walked through disappointments that could have destroyed your faith. Yet somehow you are still standing, still believing, still fighting, still moving forward. And that is not weakness, that is resilience. And resilience is powerful because it proves that pressure did not defeat you. The fire did not consume you. The pain did not erase your purpose. But here is what you must understand. Resilience alone is not enough. You also need wisdom. Because if you are not careful, survival mode can become your identity. You can become so accustomed to struggle that peace starts feeling unfamiliar. And some people sabotage healthy environments because chaos has become normal to them. And they distrust kindness because they have experienced manipulation for too long. They reject stability because dysfunction became familiar. And when healing finally arrives, they mistake peace for boredom because their nervous system became addicted to drama. But you were not created to live in constant survival mode. And you deserve environments where your spirit can breathe. And you deserve relationships where trust exists. And you deserve spaces where growth is encouraged instead of attacked. And then one of the most important forms of wisdom is recognizing what no longer deserves access to you. And everything cannot travel with you into your next season. And old habits cannot go. And old mindsets cannot go. And old insecurities cannot go. And some people cannot go either. And because every new level requires a different mentality. And you cannot step into abundance while thinking like lack. You cannot build healthy relationships while entertaining toxic patterns. You cannot pursue purpose while remaining addicted to distractions. And something has to change. And often the first thing that must change is your willingness to tolerate what drains you. And stop tolerating conversations that poison your spirit. And stop tolerating environments that suffocate your ambition. And stop tolerating disrespect disguised as humor. And stop tolerating people who only contact you when they need something. And your time is valuable. Your energy is valuable. Your focus is valuable. And guard them carefully. And the enemy of your future will not always appear as destruction. Sometimes it appears as distraction. Sometimes it appears as unnecessary drama. Sometimes it appears as people demanding access to your energy while contributing nothing to your growth. And you have to learn how to say no without explaining yourself excessively. And no is a complete sentence. And mature people understand boundaries without requiring long speeches. The people who become angry when you establish boundaries are often the same people who benefited from you having none. And you cannot heal while constantly abandoning yourself to satisfy everybody else. And there comes a point where you must decide that your peace matters too. Your mental health matters too. Your emotional stability matters too. And protecting those things is not selfish. It is necessary. And some of you have spent years pouring into people who never poured back into you. You became everybody's therapist while silently bleeding yourself. You became everybody's support system while carrying your own burdens alone. And eventually, exhaustion caught up with you. And because you cannot keep giving from an empty place forever. And even strong people need restoration. And even leaders need healing. And even fighters need rest. And do not confuse exhaustion with purpose. Burning yourself out does not make you noble. Sometimes wisdom looks like stepping away long enough to recover your strength. And Jesus rested. And nature rests. And seasons rest. And yet some of you feel guilty every time you pause. You have convinced yourself that your value is tied only to productivity. But your existence has value even when you are not performing, and you are not a machine. And you are a human being carrying dreams, emotions, responsibilities, and invisible battles. Give yourself permission to breathe sometimes. Give yourself permission to recover, because restoration is not weakness. Restoration is preparation. And the strongest warriors understand the importance of recovery. And while you are recovering, stop announcing every detail of your process to people who have not earned access to your vulnerability. And silence is not secrecy. Silence is strategy. And a person who constantly reveals every thought, every plan, and every emotion becomes emotionally exposed to unnecessary attacks. But a wise person understands timing. They understand discernment. They understand that not everything needs immediate expression. And some victories are safer in silence until they are fully established. And there are blessings that must be protected while they are developing. Because immature opportunities are fragile, and too much external pressure can destroy what was still trying to grow. And that is why you must become selective with your circle. And everybody around you influences your direction. And the wrong people will drain your momentum. And The wrong people will normalize mediocrity. And the wrong people will make you question your worth. But the right people will challenge you to rise higher. They will sharpen your thinking. They will hold you accountable. They will remind you of your value during moments when insecurity tries to speak louder than purpose. And choose your environment carefully. And one conversation can shift your mindset. And one relationship can alter your future. And one wrong connection can delay your destiny. And discernment matters. And sometimes discernment means recognizing that access to you is a privilege, not a right. And everybody cannot enter your inner world. And everybody cannot handle your vision. And everybody cannot carry your trust responsibly. And protect what is sacred. And protect what is growing. And protect what still needs time to develop. And because not everything unfinished should be exposed to public opinion. And some people laugh at dreams simply because they cannot see what you see yet. But history is filled with individuals who were doubted before they were celebrated. Every great vision looks impossible in its early stages. Every extraordinary life begins as something misunderstood. And so stop waiting for unanimous approval before you obey your calling. And if you keep waiting for everybody to understand your purpose, you will remain stuck forever. Some journeys require courage before confirmation appears. Some assignments require movement before clarity fully arrives, and faith moves first. And then when you finally learn how to trust your purpose more than public opinion, something powerful happens inside of you. Your confidence stops depending on applause. Your peace stops depending on validation. Your identity stops depending on external acceptance. And you become anchored and anchored people are dangerous to insecurity because they cannot be easily manipulated. And when you know who you are, you stop chasing environments that constantly require you to prove your worth. And when you know who you are, you stop begging for acceptance in rooms that dishonor your value. And when you know who you are, you stop shrinking yourself just to keep insecure people comfortable. And you were not born to live half-sized. And you were not born to spend your entire life apologizing for your gifts. And you were not born to bury your potential beneath fear and self-doubt. And there is more inside of you than what people have seen so far. And more discipline, and more creativity, and more wisdom, and more strength, and more resilience, and more greatness. But the next version of you requires protection. It requires focus. It requires silence in certain seasons. Because every transformation needs an environment where growth can occur without constant interruption. And some of you are one disciplined season away from changing your entire life. And one disciplined season away from breaking patterns that have existed in your family for generations. One disciplined season away from discovering strength you did not know you possessed. One disciplined season away from becoming the person you spent years praying to become. But discipline requires sacrifice, and sacrifice is difficult because your flesh will always resist what your future desperately needs. And your comfort zone will never introduce you to your calling. And everything extraordinary exists on the other side of discomfort. Every transformation demands confrontation. You must confront laziness. Confront fear, confront insecurity, confront the habits that keep stealing time from your destiny. Because the truth is not every battle in your life is external. Some of the greatest wars are internal. And there are moments when your biggest enemy is not another person. It is your own doubt, your own inconsistency, your own excuses, your own unwillingness to stay committed when emotions change. And feelings are unreliable leaders. And some days you will feel motivated. Other days you will feel exhausted. Some days confidence will overflow. Other days insecurity will whisper loudly in your mind. But mature people understand that purpose cannot be dependent on emotion. If you only work when you feel inspired, you will abandon greatness every time difficulty appears. And you have to become stronger than your moods. And that is why discipline matters more than temporary motivation. Motivation can start the journey, but discipline is what carries you through lonely seasons. Discipline keeps showing up when nobody notices. Discipline keeps building when progress feels invisible. Discipline keeps believing when results are delayed. And then the painful reality is that many people pray for things they are not disciplined enough to maintain. And they pray for success but avoid consistency. And they pray for healthy relationships but refuse to heal emotionally. And they pray for financial breakthrough while continuing destructive habits. And they pray for change while remaining attached to the mindset that created their current condition. But transformation requires participation. And you cannot become different while protecting every habit that keeps you the same. And something has to die for something greater to live. And old thinking must die, and self-sabotage must die. And fear-driven decisions must die. And your addiction to approval must die. And because the next version of you cannot emerge while the old version continues controlling your choices. And some of you are carrying identities that expired years ago. You are still introducing yourself through old pain, still defining yourself by old mistakes, still seeing yourself through the lens of failure instead of possibility. But your worst moment is not your permanent identity. And one mistake does not cancel your future. And one season of struggle does not erase your purpose. And one betrayal does not make you unworthy of love. And one disappointment does not mean your life is over. And you have to stop speaking death over your own destiny. And your words matter. The way you talk about yourself matters. Because eventually your mind starts believing whatever you repeatedly declare. If you constantly call yourself broken, weak, unlucky, or incapable, those words begin shaping your reality. But when you start speaking with faith, something shifts internally. And not fake confidence, not arrogance. Faith. And faith says, I may not be where I want to be, but I refuse to stay where I am. And faith says, this pain will not define me forever. And faith says, I have survived too much to quit now. And there is power in refusing to surrender mentally before the breakthrough arrives physically. And because some people lose long before life defeats them, they lose in their mind first. They stop believing improvement is possible. They stop expecting better days. They become emotionally paralyzed by disappointment. But you cannot afford to surrender internally. And you have too much purpose attached to your existence. And there are people connected to your future who need the healed version of you. There are lives waiting to be impacted by your testimony. There are doors waiting for the person you are becoming, which means your current battle is bigger than your current feelings. And you cannot quit now. And not after everything you survived. And not after every obstacle that should have destroyed you but didn't. And not after every night you cried and still found the strength to keep moving. And you are stronger than you think. And sometimes life isolates you not to punish you, but to prepare you. Some seasons feel lonely because distractions are being removed. Some relationships disappear because they were blocking your growth. Some environments collapse because your future cannot fit inside your past anymore. But loneliness can become dangerous if you interpret it incorrectly. And isolation is different from abandonment. And a surgeon isolates the patient before performing surgery. Why? Because contamination is dangerous during transformation. And some of you are in a season where life is removing contamination from your environment. Certain conversations had to end. Certain connections had to break. Certain distractions had to disappear. And not because you are forgotten, but because you are being refined. And refining is painful. And growth is painful. And change is painful. But remaining trapped in cycles that destroy your peace is painful too. And choose your pain wisely. And because temporary discomfort can produce permanent transformation. But avoiding discomfort often creates permanent regret. And one day you will either thank yourself for staying disciplined or grieve the opportunities you abandoned too early. And time keeps moving regardless. And every day you delay your growth, life continues passing by. Every day you keep waiting for perfect conditions somebody else is building despite imperfect circumstances. Stop waiting for everything to feel easy before you begin. And you do not need perfect conditions to start improving. And you need willingness. And willingness to try again after failure. And willingness to learn from mistakes instead of becoming imprisoned by them. And willingness to remain teachable even after disappointment. And pride destroys growth because pride hates correction. But wise people understand that correction is not rejection. Sometimes correction is protection. And there are moments when life exposes your weaknesses, not to shame you, but to reveal where healing is still needed. And mature people stop running from truth. They stop blaming everybody else for their condition. They stop pretending everything is fine while silently falling apart internally. And healing begins when honesty enters the room, and honesty about your habits, and honesty about your wounds, and honesty about your fears. And honesty about the patterns that keep repeating in your life. And because until you confront what is broken, you cannot truly rebuild. And in rebuilding takes courage. And it takes courage to admit you need help, and courage to walk away from toxic cycles. And courage to forgive people who never apologized. And courage to forgive yourself for things you regret deeply. And some of you are carrying guilt heavier than chains. You replay old mistakes repeatedly in your mind. You punish yourself for choices you wish you could undo. But if God wanted your past to define you permanently, you would not still be breathing right now. And there is still purpose attached to your existence. And there is still potential inside you. And there is still life beyond your failures. And stop acting like one chapter ruined the entire story. And some of the strongest people you admire today once stood exactly where you are standing now. confused, broken, discouraged, afraid. The difference is they refuse to stay there permanently. And then hear this clearly. Healing is not always instant, and sometimes healing is slow, and sometimes progress is quiet, and sometimes recovery happens in small steps instead of dramatic moments. But small progress is still progress, and do not despise gradual growth. And a building rises one brick at a time, muscles strengthen one workout at a time, wisdom develops one lesson at a time. And your future is being shaped through consistent decisions repeated daily. And that is why your daily habits matter so much. And your life is not changed only by major moments. It is changed by repeated patterns, repeated thoughts, repeated choices, repeated behaviors. And small disciplines create large outcomes over time. And 1 hour wasted every day becomes years lost eventually. And one healthy decision repeated consistently becomes transformation eventually. And you are always becoming something through repetition. And the question is whether your habits are building your future or destroying it quietly. And many people sabotage themselves not through dramatic mistakes, but through daily neglect. Neglecting their health, neglecting their mind, neglecting their goals, neglecting their peace. And what you ignore long enough eventually weakens, and that includes your purpose. And dreams neglected eventually feel impossible. And relationships neglected eventually become distant. And mental health neglected eventually becomes exhaustion. And you cannot water everything except your own soul and expect to remain strong. And you need spiritual maintenance and mental maintenance and emotional maintenance. And because life is heavy sometimes, responsibility is heavy, expectations are heavy. And if you never pause to restore yourself internally, eventually pressure will crack what looks strong externally. And that is why silence becomes so important. And not every moment requires noise, and some breakthroughs are born in stillness. And some revelations arrive when distractions finally disappear. And the world teaches people to stay constantly entertained because silence forces confrontation. In silence, you hear your real thoughts. In silence, you recognize unresolved pain. In silence, you face the truth about who you are becoming. And then many people avoid silence because they are afraid of what honesty might reveal. But silence can heal you if you let it. And silence teaches clarity. And silence sharpens discernment. And silence strengthens self-awareness. And there are answers you keep searching for publicly that can only be discovered privately. And you do not always need another opinion, and sometimes you need reflection, and sometimes you need prayer, and sometimes you need distance from the noise long enough to hear your own spirit again. And because when your mind becomes overcrowded with everybody else's expectations, you start losing connection with your authentic self. You start living to impress instead of living with intention. And then social media has intensified this struggle, and people compare their behind-the-scenes reality to somebody else's highlight reel. They see polished images without seeing private pain. They see success without seeing sacrifice. They see smiles without seeing struggle. And comparison is poison to purpose. And the moment you become obsessed with another person's timeline, you lose appreciation for your own journey. But your assignment was never to become a copy of somebody else. Your life carries unique purpose, unique timing, unique lessons. And stop rushing your process because somebody else appears ahead of you. And fruit grows at different speeds. And some trees produce quickly. Others take years before visible harvest appears. Yet the slow-growing tree often develops the strongest roots. Do not confuse delayed visibility with failure, and your timing matters. And sometimes delays are actually preparation disguised as frustration. And if certain opportunities had arrived too early, you would not have been emotionally ready to sustain them. If certain doors had opened prematurely, your character might have collapsed under the pressure. And so instead of cursing every delay, ask yourself what this season is trying to teach you. And patience, and discipline, and humility, and resilience. And because every season carries instruction if you are willing to learn. And pain can educate you or harden you, depending on your response. And some people become wiser through suffering. Others become bitter. Some people use hardship as fuel for growth. Others use hardship as justification for quitting, and choose growth, and choose healing, and choose discipline, and even when it feels difficult, and especially when it feels difficult. And because your future self is depending on the decisions you make right now. And one day, the person you are becoming will look back at this season and realize these difficult moments were building hidden strength. The rejection taught discernment. The loneliness taught self-respect. The struggle taught resilience. The silence taught wisdom. And nothing was wasted, and not the tears, and not the heartbreak, and not the disappointment, and not the delay. And life has a way of using painful seasons to prepare people for powerful assignments. And Joseph's prison prepared him for leadership, and David's wilderness prepared him for kingship. And your hidden season is preparing you too. And do not resent the process that is developing your strength. And then stop assuming that hidden seasons mean forgotten seasons. Some of the most important preparation happens where nobody can applaud you. Public success often grows out of private obedience. And can you remain faithful without attention? And can you remain disciplined without recognition? And can you continue improving even when nobody notices your effort? And because character is revealed by what you do when applause disappears. And anybody can appear committed during exciting moments. But true maturity is revealed during ordinary days, during quiet seasons, during periods when motivation fades and consistency becomes a choice instead of an emotion. And consistency is powerful because it compounds over time. And tiny efforts repeated daily become extraordinary outcomes eventually. And the person who keeps learning daily eventually becomes wise. And the person who keeps saving consistently eventually builds stability. And the person who keeps healing intentionally eventually becomes emotionally healthy. And transformation rarely happens overnight, but it always leaves evidence eventually. And so stop quitting because progress feels slow, and slow growth is still growth. And a candle does not light the entire room instantly. Yet eventually darkness begins retreating because even small light carries power. And you carry power too. And not because you are perfect, and not because you have everything figured out. But because survival already proved there is strength inside you greater than the pressure surrounding you, and you are still here, and still breathing, and still fighting, and still hoping, and still trying again. And then sometimes survival itself is evidence that purpose refuses to die inside of you. And because there were moments when giving up seemed easier, and moments when exhaustion whispered louder than faith, and moments when disappointment made you question everything. And yet something inside you kept refusing to surrender completely. And that something is purpose. And that something is destiny refusing to release you. And that something is the reason you cannot settle permanently in mediocrity, even when fear tries convincing you to stay comfortable. And you were created for more and more peace and more wisdom and more impact and more growth and more discipline and more life than what you have experienced so far. But more requires courage. And courage to let go of what no longer serves your future. And courage to walk away from environments that keep shrinking your confidence. And courage to stop betraying yourself just to maintain temporary acceptance. And because every time you abandon your values to please people, you lose pieces of yourself slowly. And then eventually exhaustion enters because pretending is exhausting. And pretending to be okay when you are hurting. And pretending to enjoy environments that drain you. And pretending to be smaller so insecure people feel comfortable around you. And pretending not to care about your dreams because others mock ambition. And enough pretending, and you have hidden long enough, and dimmed your light long enough, and questioned your worth long enough, and the next chapter of your life requires authenticity. Real healing, real focus, real growth, and then real growth will cost you comfort. But comfort has never changed anybody's life. And comfort has never built empires. Comfort has never produced warriors. Comfort has never transformed ordinary people into individuals capable of carrying extraordinary responsibility. Every great story contains moments where somebody had to choose between convenience and calling. And the painful truth is that many people keep missing their next level because they are addicted to what feels familiar. And familiar pain can become seductive. And people stay in toxic environments because at least the dysfunction is predictable. They remain trapped in unhealthy cycles because uncertainty feels terrifying. They keep entertaining the same destructive habits because temporary comfort feels easier than long-term transformation. But growth will always require leaving something behind, and you cannot carry old mentalities into new dimensions. You cannot keep feeding insecurity while expecting confidence to grow. You cannot keep living distracted while praying for purpose-driven results, and your future demands a different version of you. And that version requires intentionality, and not random effort, and not occasional discipline, and intentionality, and waking up with awareness about the life you are building, recognizing that every decision either moves you closer to your destiny or further from it. Understanding that small choices are not actually small because repeated consistently they shape identity. And who you become is hidden inside what you repeatedly do. And that is why your habits matter more than your intentions. And everybody has intentions. Everybody talks about dreams. Everybody imagines a better future. But disciplined people separate themselves because they act consistently even when excitement fades, and excitement is temporary, and commitment is what changes lives. And can you stay committed when nobody praises your effort? And can you stay committed when results take longer than expected? And can you stay committed when failure embarrasses you publicly? And because commitment reveals character. And anybody can pursue a dream while everything feels exciting. But mature people keep moving even after disappointment enters the room. They understand that setbacks are not signals to quit. Setbacks are often classrooms disguised as frustration. And failure can educate you if pride does not interfere. And some of the greatest wisdom you will ever gain comes from mistakes. Mistakes reveal weaknesses. They expose blind spots. They force humility. And humility is powerful because humble people remain teachable. And pride says, I already know enough. And wisdom says, there is still more to learn. And the moment you stop learning, you stop growing. And some people remain trapped for years because they refuse correction. They repeat the same cycles, make the same decisions, entertain the same dysfunction, then blame life for outcomes their habits created. But mature people take responsibility, and not responsibility for everything that happened to them because some pain was unfair. Some wounds were caused by other people's choices. Some betrayals were undeserved. But mature people still take responsibility for their healing, their response, their growth moving forward. And you cannot control every event in your life, but you can control how you respond to it. And you can choose whether pain becomes poison or preparation, and you can choose whether betrayal hardens your heart or sharpens your discernment. And you can choose whether failure destroys your confidence or develops your resilience. And your response determines your direction. And one of the greatest acts of maturity is refusing to become bitter because life became difficult. And bitterness feels powerful temporarily because it convinces you that emotional walls are protection. But bitterness eventually imprisons the person carrying it. It drains joy, corrupts peace, distorts perspective. A bitter person starts expecting disappointment everywhere, but healing requires openness again. And not foolishness, and not blind trust, and wisdom and openness can coexist, and you can become discerning without becoming cold. And you can protect your peace without isolating your heart permanently. And you can learn from pain without allowing pain to define your personality. And some people survived difficult seasons physically, but never healed emotionally. So now they approach every opportunity expecting disaster, every relationship expecting betrayal, every blessing expecting loss, but hypervigilance is exhausting. And living constantly guarded drains the soul. And at some point, healing requires believing that your future does not have to repeat your past. And that belief takes courage, and especially after disappointment, and especially after heartbreak, and especially after prayers seemed unanswered. But courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is movement despite fear. It is choosing faith while uncertainty still exists. It is deciding that temporary pain will not permanently paralyze your destiny. And you have already survived things you once believed would destroy you completely. And remember that. And there was a time you thought you would never recover emotionally, never smile genuinely again, never regain strength again. Yet here you are, still breathing, still becoming, still carrying purpose. And that means resilience already lives inside you. And you are not as fragile as your fear sometimes suggests. And there is strength in you that pressure has not defeated yet. And in every difficult season you survived added another layer to your character, another layer to your wisdom, another layer to your endurance. And do not waste the lessons pain taught you. And pain is expensive. Learn from it, and learn how to identify red flags earlier, and learn how to establish healthier boundaries, and learn how to stop abandoning yourself for temporary acceptance, and learn how to prioritize peace over chaos disguised as excitement. And because maturity changes what attracts you. And immature people chase attention, and mature people protect alignment, and immature people prioritize appearance, and mature people prioritize substance, and immature people seek validation constantly, and mature people build quietly whether validation arrives or not. And one of the clearest signs of growth is when your need for external approval starts decreasing. You stop feeling obligated to explain every decision. Stop feeling pressured to prove your worth. Stop chasing people who repeatedly overlook your value, and you begin understanding that not everybody deserves access to your energy, and energy is precious, and your focus is precious, and your emotional capacity is precious. And stop giving permanent access to people committed to temporary behavior. And some individuals only appear when you are useful. They disappear during difficult seasons, then return once stability comes back into your life. But pay attention to patterns. Consistency reveals character, and words can perform, and promises can perform, but patterns reveal truth, and wisdom watches patterns instead of becoming hypnotized by potential. And potential without action changes nothing. And a person can possess talent and still destroy opportunities through lack of discipline. They can possess intelligence and still sabotage relationships through emotional immaturity. They can possess dreams and still remain stagnant because fear keeps overpowering action. And talent alone is not enough. And you need character to sustain what talent creates. And character determines whether success builds you or destroys you. And because success magnifies whatever already exists internally. If insecurity controls you before success arrives, greater visibility will only intensify insecurity. If pride controls you before opportunities increase, greater influence may magnify arrogance. And that is why hidden seasons matter. And private seasons reveal who you are without applause. And who are you when nobody is watching? And who are you when recognition disappears? And who are you when convenience conflicts with integrity? And because integrity is expensive. And integrity means doing what is right even when shortcuts appear easier. It means remaining honest when dishonesty could benefit you temporarily. It means refusing to compromise your values for quick opportunities. And in a world obsessed with instant gratification, integrity becomes rare, and people want quick money, quick fame, quick success, quick results. But anything built too quickly without foundation often collapses under pressure, and slow preparation creates stability. And roots matter more than appearance. And a tree with shallow roots may look impressive temporarily, but storms reveal weaknesses eventually. And storms reveal people too. And pressure exposes character. And pressure reveals priorities. And pressure exposes whether your confidence was genuine or merely dependent on favorable conditions. And anybody can praise during comfortable seasons. But difficult moments reveal what truly lives inside a person and what comes out of you under pressure. And faith or panic, and wisdom or impulsiveness, and growth or excuses. And because pressure does not create character, it reveals it. And if pressure keeps exposing areas that need healing, do not become discouraged. Become intentional. Awareness is a gift. You cannot repair what you refuse to acknowledge. And some people spend their entire lives running from self-awareness because accountability feels uncomfortable. They blame every failed relationship on others, every missed opportunity on bad luck, every setback on external circumstances. But self-awareness changes everything. And self-awareness asks difficult questions. And am I contributing to my own frustration? And are my habits aligned with the future I desire? And am I healing or merely distracting myself? And am I growing or just aging? And those questions matter. And because life can become repetitive when lessons remain unlearned. Different faces, same dysfunction. Different locations, same emptiness. Different opportunities, same self-sabotage. And cycles continue until awareness interrupts them. And sometimes the hardest person to confront is yourself, and confronting your own inconsistencies, and your own fears, and your own procrastination, and your own tendency to delay difficult decisions. But freedom begins where honesty enters, and you cannot heal what you keep hiding from yourself. And hear this clearly. Pretending to be strong is not the same as actually healing. Some people mastered performance while their inner world remains exhausted. They smile publicly while silently drowning privately. But suppression is not healing, and ignoring pain does not erase it. And avoiding emotions does not remove them. And eventually, whatever remains unaddressed demands attention. And that is why inner work matters. And not glamorous work, and not social media work, and inner work. And the kind nobody applauds immediately. And learning emotional regulation, and learning discipline, and learning patience, and learning how to forgive without becoming foolish, and learning how to trust yourself again after disappointment. And learning how to sit alone without feeling worthless, and learning how to enjoy peace instead of craving chaos. And because some people have experienced dysfunction for so long that stability feels uncomfortable, they mistake emotional inconsistency for passion. They mistake turbulence for excitement. But peace is not boring. Peace is healthy. And healthy environments often feel unfamiliar to wounded people initially. And healing changes your appetite, and you stop craving what once destroyed you, and you stop entertaining conversations that drain your spirit, and you stop romanticizing toxic behavior, and you stop lowering standards to avoid loneliness. And because loneliness is temporary but settling can cost years of your life. And do not trade long-term peace for short-term comfort. And loneliness has taught many people valuable lessons. It taught them self-respect, taught them independence, taught them how to hear their own thoughts again, taught them how to build identity outside of constant external validation. And then once you truly discover your value, desperation loses power over you. And desperate people tolerate anything to avoid being alone. But healed people understand that protecting peace is more valuable than forcing connections that suffocate growth. And not every goodbye is a tragedy. And some endings are rescue operations. And some separations are divine protection. And some closed doors prevented disasters you were emotionally attached to. And trust that. And because hindsight often reveals that certain things ending saved your future. And at first it felt painful. And at first it felt unfair. And at first you questioned everything. But eventually clarity arrived, and clarity often arrives after distance. And that is another reason silence matters. Distance creates perspective. When noise decreases, discernment increases. You start recognizing what was draining you, manipulating you, distracting you. You start noticing how certain environments affected your peace, and environment matters more than many people realize. And a seed can carry incredible potential and still struggle in unhealthy soil. And likewise, gifted people can remain stagnant in environments that constantly discourage growth. If every voice around you speaks fear, eventually fear starts sounding reasonable. If every conversation normalizes mediocrity, eventually ambition feels unrealistic. And protect your environment carefully. And pay attention to what influences your mind daily. And what you consume repeatedly shapes your thinking. And what you entertain repeatedly shapes your identity. And that includes conversations, and music, and social media, and relationships, and thought patterns. And everything feeding your spirit either strengthens or weakens you gradually. And gradual destruction is dangerous because it often goes unnoticed initially. And people rarely ruin their lives overnight. And usually destruction happens slowly, and one compromise at a time, and one ignored boundary at a time, and one unhealthy habit at a time, and one distraction at a time. And likewise, transformation happens gradually too, and one disciplined morning at a time, and one healed thought at a time, and one healthy decision at a time, and one courageous step at a time. And do not underestimate consistency. And consistency turns ordinary effort into extraordinary outcomes eventually. And most people overestimate what they can accomplish quickly and underestimate what disciplined habits can produce over years. And imagine who you could become if you stayed committed long enough. And imagine the peace you could experience if healing became intentional instead of accidental. And imagine the confidence that would grow if you stopped betraying your own standards. And imagine the opportunities waiting on the other side of your consistency. And because opportunities are often attracted to preparation, and when preparation meets opportunity, people call it luck. But behind every lucky moment usually exists years of hidden discipline nobody witnessed. And hidden discipline creates visible results eventually. And that is why you must stop craving immediate applause. Some rewards take time. Some harvests require seasons of invisible labor before manifestation appears. And trust the process even when it feels slow, and trust your growth even when evidence seems limited. And trust that every disciplined choice matters even if results are not immediate. And because life is always responding to repeated behavior, and your future is listening to your daily habits, and your destiny is listening to your level of discipline. And the person you become tomorrow is being shaped by the decisions you keep making today. And so choose intentionally, and choose healing over bitterness, and choose discipline over excuses, and choose peace over chaos, and choose growth over comfort, and choose purpose over popularity, and choose integrity over shortcuts, and choose consistency over temporary motivation. And because eventually your choices become your life. And there is too much greatness inside you to keep living beneath your potential. And too much wisdom waiting to emerge, and too much impact waiting to happen, and too much healing waiting to unfold, and too much purpose waiting for your courage to fully awaken. And you were not created merely to survive life, and you were created to become transformed through it.